Ethan Lawson had just cracked open a cold one, a can of soda, the kind you pick up when you've given up on self-care and decided to have dinner in front of Netflix. He was sprawled out on his worn-out couch in his small apartment, the faded upholstery dotted with crumbs from too many pizza nights. It was one of those days. The kind where you don't want to face the outside world, but the universe still finds a way to remind you it's there, waiting to throw a curveball. He was scrolling through yet another alien conspiracy video. Ancient astronauts of the Sumerians, proof the Anunnaki still walk among us, the thumbnail promised. Ethan clicked, because why not? At least the channel had better production value than his miserable day job as a customer support rep. The camera zoomed in dramatically on a cave painting in some remote region of the world, then cut to a grinning host who promised to uncover the shocking truth about Earth's real history. Ethan sighed, already rolling his eyes, but hey, it was better than thinking about how he hadn't gotten a single promotion in the past 5 years. Suddenly, the room dimmed. The soft hum of his refrigerator faded as if the world itself had paused. Ethan blinked, distracted, and squinted at the strange blue light glowing from the coffee table. At first, he thought it was just another of his quirky gadgets malfunctioning, but when he reached out to tap it, the air around him pulsed. Ethan Lawson, you have been selected. The voice that filled the room wasn't human, but it wasn't entirely mechanical either. It was as if the very air was vibrating with authority. Ethan's heart skipped, his eyes narrowing. He pulled his hand back like he'd just touched a live wire. Before he could speak, the light on the table flickered, and then a holographic message projected itself in the air. It was a distorted figure, half human and half something else, its skin a shimmering greenish blue, its face a blur of geometric patterns. The figure's voice came again, this time clearer, do not be alarmed. You have been chosen to become the elemental guardian of Earth. The fate of this planet depends on your actions. Ethan blinked, looking around the room as if checking for hidden cameras. Okay. What the hell is this? Some sort of viral marketing? A prank? The hologram paused, the silence stretching for an uncomfortable beat. Then, the voice responded with a more somber tone. This is not a joke, Ethan Lawson. The Earth's core is under threat. You possess the unique qualities needed to protect it. You must come to the designated location to fulfill your role. Now. The light flickered out, and Ethan sat back, blinking at the now empty table. His soda can sat cold, forgotten. He rubbed his face, trying to make sense of what just happened. Well, that's the last time I drink 3 cups of coffee in the afternoon, he muttered to himself. He'd always believed in aliens, but this was a whole new level of weird. The next few hours passed in a blur. Ethan, half in disbelief, decided to go along with it. After all, he had nothing better to do. The world's most cryptic message had given him an address, a seemingly random location near the outskirts of town. A part of him, probably the rational, sane part, urged him to ignore it. But the rest of him was just tired enough to want to see this absurdity through to the end. He found himself standing in front of an unmarked building, a little off the beaten path. The address was located under an old warehouse, its entrance hidden behind a tangle of overgrown ivy and cracked concrete. The place smelled like mildew and something worse, like history long forgotten. A part of him still couldn't believe he was doing this. Maybe he was about to get caught in some dark, government-backed conspiracy. Maybe there was an underground cult running things, but it wasn't just his usual paranoia that urged him forward, it was something else. A spark in the air. A feeling that, just maybe, this would lead to something important. For once in his life, Ethan didn't want to be the guy who missed the opportunity. He pushed open a heavy metal door, stepping into the dimly lit corridor beyond. Inside, things only got stranger. The place was enormous, vast, sterile, and full of echoing footsteps. There were technicians in lab coats moving quickly around advanced equipment, and a small group of people standing in the middle of a circular chamber, talking in low voices. As Ethan approached, they all turned to look at him. Ethan Lawson, a woman in a white lab coat said, her tone warm but firm. You've come. Good. We've been waiting for you. Yeah, Ethan mumbled, still feeling out of place. So, what is this? And why me? She smiled softly, gesturing for him to follow her. Let me explain everything. My name is Dr. Lila Voss, and I suppose, we, is an understatement, are part of an organization that protects Earth's core from external threats. You've been chosen for a very specific reason. The fate of this world, and all life on it, depends on you now. Wait, external threats? Like, aliens? Ethan asked, suddenly feeling like the hero of a very bad sci-fi movie. Exactly. Dr. Voss's eyes narrowed. The Navori, an alien race, have been siphoning Earth's core energy for decades. They use it to power their dying planet, draining ours in the process. If we don't stop them soon, Earth's core will collapse, and the planet will be irreversibly damaged. That's where you come in. Ethan blinked. So, I'm the chosen one, huh? Cool. But why me? What makes me so special? You possess a rare connection to the Earth's energy, she said, her voice steady but urgent. The energy within you, once unlocked, can connect you to the Earth's core. You're the guardian, Ethan. The one who can stop the Navori before it's too late. Before Ethan could say anything else, the room began to hum. The lights flickered, and a low vibration coursed through his body, like the pulse of the Earth itself. His skin tingled as if a current had surged through him. He stumbled, his heart racing. You will experience something, Dr. Voss said, her voice now sounding distant, as though calling to him from somewhere far away. Focus, Ethan. Connect with it. Ethan clenched his fists, fighting the growing sense of dread. He felt something stirring deep inside him, an energy unlike anything he'd ever known. The ground beneath his feet seemed to shift, and the walls vibrated as if the Earth itself were waking up. Suddenly, he felt his consciousness expand, as if he could feel the very heartbeat of the planet, and then it all snapped into place that he understood. He was no longer just Ethan Lawson, the underachiever from a small town. He was something else, something vast, connected to the very life force of Earth itself. It was overwhelming. The moment passed, and Ethan collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. Sweat poured from his forehead, and the room swam in his vision. Dr. Voss was there, crouching beside him, her hand on his shoulder. That's just the beginning, Ethan. It's okay. The connection is raw right now, but with time, you'll learn to control it. You're the Earth's last hope. And that power you just tapped into, it's only the beginning. Ethan sat there, trying to absorb the whirlwind of information. His whole life had been a series of mundane events, and now, this. He had powers. Actual, world-altering powers. He stood shakily, his legs unsteady beneath him. So, now what? We prepare, Dr. Voss said, her eyes hardening. The Navori are already on the move. They have a mining operation deep under the Earth's surface. We need you to stop them before it's too late. But, Ethan, one thing I need to make clear. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. You're the only one who can do this. You can't run from this responsibility. You have no choice. Ethan looked at her, then at the people around him, scientists, soldiers, all standing ready, waiting for him to lead them. He felt the weight of their gazes. It was hard to breathe under the pressure, but there was something else, too. Deep down, beneath the fear and disbelief, a spark of purpose flickered, and for the first time in his life, Ethan Lawson didn't feel completely out of place. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was in over his head. Just hours ago, he had been living his usual, unremarkable life, picking up extra shifts at the call center, scrolling through weird conspiracy theories in his spare time, avoiding commitment, avoiding anything that might require actual effort. Now, here he was, a reluctant hero, the Earth's last defense against an alien race intent on stripping it bare. It felt like a bad joke. Or maybe he was still asleep, trapped in a bizarre dream, but the buzzing in his chest was real. The power thrumming just beneath his skin was undeniable. It was like the pulse of the planet itself was syncing with his own heartbeat. And it was starting to feel like he could control it. Dr. Voss led him deeper into the facility, where a team of engineers and military personnel were gathered around a large holographic map that displayed the Earth's surface. Pinpoints of light were scattered across the map like a constellation, indicating key locations where the Navori were operating. Some were deep underground, others in remote parts of the ocean, and a few were located on the surface itself, hidden in plain sight. You've unlocked only a fraction of the potential inside you, Dr. Voss explained, her voice low but urgent. What you felt earlier, that connection to Earth's energy, is just the beginning. You will need time to fully harness it, but we don't have that luxury. The Navori are already siphoning energy from deep beneath the Earth's surface. The longer we wait, the more they drain. If they succeed, the core will destabilize, and Earth will become uninhabitable. Ethan rubbed his temples, trying to focus on the map, but it felt like too much at once. He couldn't just switch gears from office drone to planetary protector. He was still trying to wrap his mind around the fact that the Earth itself had chosen him to be its guardian. He looked up at Dr. Voss, her expression steady, as if she had accepted this destiny long ago. Why me? He asked again, the question gnawing at him. I'm not some kind of superhero. I don't have training. I'm just a guy who sits behind a desk and pushes paper. Dr. Voss didn't respond immediately. Instead, she gestured to one of the scientists at the table, who pressed a button on the console. A new image flickered to life, one that made Ethan's stomach churn. It was a series of underground mining operations, massive drills, long shafts that extended miles below the Earth's surface, sucking up energy from the core. The energy levels spiked dangerously as the Navori's technology siphoned it away. The map zoomed in on a specific location in the center of the Pacific Ocean, where the Navori had established a major base of operations. That's where we believe they're conducting their most dangerous mining operation, Dr. Voss said. They've already extracted enough energy to start destabilizing the Earth's tectonic plates. If we don't stop them now, the planet will fracture. Ethan stared at the glowing image. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him again. This wasn't some casual fight against a group of bank robbers or even a standard alien invasion. The fate of the world, of all life, depended on him, and he didn't even know how to use his powers. You'll need training, Dr. Voss continued. We've set up a virtual simulation that will help you hone your connection to the Earth's energy. It won't be easy, but it's the only way we can give you a fighting chance. A team of engineers led him to a chamber at the back of the facility, a large, open space that seemed to hum with unseen energy. There was a low-frequency vibration in the air, like the sound of distant thunder. Ethan stepped inside, feeling the familiar discomfort of not knowing what to expect. This time, though, the unease felt different, more urgent. Dr. Voss handed him a sleek headset and a set of gloves, both covered in strange metallic markings. These will interface with your powers, she explained. When you wear them, the simulation will sync with your energy and help you focus it. You need to learn control, Ethan. And fast. Right, he said, trying to suppress the growing panic in his chest. Control. Got it. He put on the gloves and the headset, then took his place in the center of the room. The walls around him shimmered, and the air felt thick, like the atmosphere was alive. Dr. Voss's voice came through his earpiece, calm but firm. Close your eyes and focus on the Earth's pulse. You are connected to it now. Breathe deeply. Let the energy flow through you. Ethan closed his eyes, the world around him vanishing into blackness. His heart raced. How was he supposed to do this? The whole thing felt like a bad meditation app, except he wasn't sitting cross-legged in his living room. He was standing on the edge of the Earth's survival, and his success or failure could determine the fate of the planet. For a moment, all he could hear was his own breath, the rush of blood in his ears. And then, somewhere deep inside, he felt it. The connection. a pulsing energy beneath his feet, like the earth was alive and breathing along with him. It was subtle at first, just a whisper at the edge of his senses. But then it grew louder, stronger, until he could feel it vibrating through every part of his body. It was like standing on the surface of a planet in motion, like standing at the center of a living, breathing organism. Ethan reached out, instinctively. He let his mind travel to the energy that connected him to the core, like a line connecting his body to the beating heart of Earth itself. The power surged through him, wild and untamed, but it wasn't painful. It was exhilarating, like discovering an entirely new part of himself. He could feel the ground beneath his feet, the rocks and minerals that made up the planet's crust, the oceans deep below, even the molten core itself, hot and pulsing with immense energy. Focus, Ethan, Dr. Voss's voice cut through his concentration. Don't let the energy overwhelm you. You need to direct it. Ethan clenched his fists, willing the energy to move. He imagined it flowing through his veins, spreading out from his chest, through his limbs, down to his fingertips. Slowly, the energy obeyed. His hands crackled with power, electric tendrils of green energy shooting from his palms. He gritted his teeth, surprised at how easy it was to channel the raw force into a single, focused point. The energy swirled around him, rising from the ground, forming into shapes, then disintegrating into particles of light that he didn't know how long he stood there, focusing, but when he opened his eyes again, the simulation room was eerily quiet. The glowing energy had vanished, and the space felt empty. His hands were still tingling, but the overwhelming sense of power was gone, replaced by exhaustion. You did well, Dr. Voss said, stepping forward. You've tapped into the energy successfully. But remember, control is key. If you lose focus, it can backfire. You need to learn how to control the flow of energy. Ethan nodded, though his mind was still reeling. Yeah, I get it. I need more practice. Exactly, she replied. And while you're training, the Navori won't wait. We've already lost too much time. I suggest you prepare yourself for what comes next. Ethan exhaled, the weight of her words sinking in. He could feel the responsibility settling deeper inside him, the reality of what he had to do. He wasn't just training to be a hero. He was training to save the world. The following days passed in a blur of intense training, simulations, and briefings. The facility was a hive of activity, with people rushing in and out, coordinating with military forces around the globe. Ethan spent hours learning to control his newfound abilities, creating storms, manipulating the Earth's crust, even summoning small earthquakes. But the more he learned, the more he realized just how much he still didn't understand. He was still no closer to the answer. How could he stop the Navori from draining the Earth's core? Then, as if fate were pushing him forward, the opportunity came. It was a few days later when they finally had a lead on the Navori's main operation. A deep-sea mining rig located in the Pacific was drawing energy at an unsustainable rate. Dr. Voss and the team had been tracking the operation for weeks. The time had come to strike. You're ready, Ethan, Dr. Voss said, looking at him one last time before the mission. Her face was unreadable, but there was a spark of something in her eyes. Hope. This is it. You've trained for this. Ethan wasn't sure if he believed her, but there was no turning back now. This wasn't a simulation. This was real. And the Navori weren't just an alien threat, they were the destruction of the Earth itself. He took a deep breath, feeling the energy within him swirl again. This time, though, it felt different. It was no longer just a new power, it was a responsibility. A responsibility he was finally ready shouldered. As the team suited up and boarded the transport ship bound for the Pacific, Ethan couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm wash over him. He had no idea what awaited them, but he knew one thing: he wasn't going to let the Earth down. The transport ship cut through the night sky like a streak of silver lightning, its engines humming low and steady. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, but inside, it was quiet. Almost too quiet. Ethan sat with his hands folded in his lap, trying to steady his breathing. he couldn't stop replaying everything that had happened in the last few days. The discovery. The powers. The responsibilities that seemed to pile up faster than he could manage. His fingers tapped nervously against his thigh as he stared at the map of the Pacific Ocean that was projected on the screen in front of him. They were heading straight for the coordinates that Dr. Voss had given them, a deep-sea mining platform miles below the surface. A black spot in the vast expanse of water, hidden from the eyes of most satellites, but not hidden from the Earth's energy. No, that was something that Ethan could feel, now. The pull of the planet's life force, the way it stretched and bent beneath his feet. He knew, somehow, that the Navori were draining it, using it to fuel something they weren't sharing with the humans who were still clueless. The air in the cabin grew thick with tension, the weight of the mission pressing down on everyone. There were 6 others on board, all wearing military-grade suits and scanning the horizon. Ethan was the odd one out. He wore no suit, just a simple jacket and jeans, but his mind was wrapped in the unfamiliar energy that had become a part of him. Dr. Voss sat across from him, her eyes fixed on the data stream in front of her. Her expression was unreadable, but the slight crease in her brow told Ethan she was concerned, too. She was always concerned. Finally, Dr. Voss spoke, her voice calm but firm. "We're approaching the drop zone. You'll need to stay focused, Ethan. This mission won't be like anything you've experienced. You'll be operating on your own." "I get it," Ethan said, though his throat felt dry. I don't know if I'm ready for this." "You are," she said, not looking at him but speaking with such certainty that it almost made him believe her. "We've trained for this moment. Trust yourself." Ethan nodded, but the knot in his stomach tightened. Trust himself. He wasn't sure what that even meant anymore. His life had been defined by his lack of direction, a steady stream of low-risk choices, and a refusal to take chances. And now? Now, he was supposed to tap into something primal, something raw and vast, like the Earth itself, and stop an alien force from destroying the planet. The transport ship jolted suddenly, and Ethan felt the jarring shock all the way through his body. His heart jumped in his chest as the ship's internal lights flickered. The comms crackled. "We've been hit," one of the soldiers on board said. "It's coming from below, deep below." Dr. Voss was already standing, moving quickly toward the front of the cabin. "It's them," she said, her voice sharp, though her face remained calm. "They know we're here." Ethan's mind raced. They hadn't even arrived yet. The Navori were already attacking. Before he could say anything, the ship's warning systems blared to life. The screen showed a massive energy signature radiating up from the ocean depths, pulsing like a beacon. It was the Navori's drilling operation, no doubt, and it was feeding more power into the surrounding water, a dangerous buildup that could cause a devastating chain reaction. "We have to move now," Dr. Voss said. "Ethan, we're about to deploy you." A door on the far side of the cabin slid open, revealing a long chute that led down to the ocean surface. Ethan's stomach flipped. It was one thing to be strapped into a seat and be transported by the military, but this? This felt like he was being thrown into the lion's den without a plan, but there was no time for second thoughts. The soldiers were already gearing up, sliding into their suits with practiced ease. Dr. Voss, her face set in determination, approached him, her eyes locking with his. "Remember your training," she said quietly. "You have the power, Ethan. But you must control it. Don't let it control you." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. He nodded, though a part of him wasn't entirely sure he knew what that meant. He was still learning to control his own body, let alone the forces of the Earth. But right now, he had no choice. The planet needed him. And if there was a chance, however slim, that he could stop the Navori, he was going to take it. Ethan stood, taking a deep breath, and strapped himself into a harness that was quickly adjusted by one of the soldiers. The chute opened wide, and the team began to descend into the dark depths below. As they plunged downward, the sound of the wind howling in their ears was replaced by a strange, hollow pressure, the deep sea closing in around them. The descent was slow, but in that moment, Ethan felt the energy building within him once again. His skin buzzed with power as he reached out mentally, connecting with the earth beneath the water, feeling the immense pressure, the currents that swirled around the ship's hull. It wasn't as violent as the first time he had tapped into the energy, but it was more focused, more deliberate. The earth was there, waiting for him to act. Waiting for him to stop the damage. The chute finally stopped, and the soldiers deployed into the cold, murky water. Ethan followed, his boots hitting the ocean floor with a dull thud. The sea was unnervingly silent, save for the soft hum of the Navori's mining operation deep below. The ocean floor stretched out before them, a vast expanse of jagged rocks and shifting sands. They were in the heart of it now, and as Ethan stood there, looking around, he felt an unsettling sense of being watched. The Navori were here, just beyond the reach of their light, hiding in the shadows. He was no longer just a man on a mission. He was part of the planet itself. The connection was growing stronger, more instinctual, as if the earth was guiding him, pulling him forward, telling him what to do. The energy thrummed through his chest, down his arms, to his fingers, and before he knew it, he raised his hands, palm out, and the ground beneath him responded. The rocks trembled. The ocean shifted. A low, rumbling roar echoed in the distance, a sound that was both alien and familiar. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. It was the Navori. Dr. Voss's voice came through his comms, sharp and clear. Ethan, we've pinpointed the Navori's base. It's under a cave system several miles ahead of you. But be careful. The energy levels are fluctuating. You need to disrupt their power grid if we're going to stop them. He didn't wait for further instructions. Ethan took off, his boots kicking up sand and gravel as he sprinted toward the cave's entrance, his hands crackling with the energy of the earth. The energy was starting to feel more like a part of him, the way a tool feels in a craftsman's hand, or a weapon to a soldier. He felt invincible. He felt connected. As he neared the entrance, the ground beneath him shook, and a loud, metallic screech echoed from within the cave. The Navori had sensed him. He could feel them, their presence, their technology humming deep beneath the stone. The energy from the earth began to pulse around him, responding to their invasive force. Then, without warning, a massive drill shot through the cave entrance, aimed directly at him. It was sleek, metal, and covered in strange alien symbols. The Navori had noticed him. And they were going to try to stop him. Ethan raised his arms, concentrating on the ground beneath his feet. The energy surged through him, and the earth itself seemed to respond. He pushed outward, willing the ground to rise, to bend and shift. The drill's path was halted as the stone and sand beneath it erupted in a violent, controlled explosion. Ethan's energy twisted the rock and earth into a barrier, creating a shockwave that sent the drill careening sideways. The Navori forces, some of them humanoid, others indistinct shapes covered in armor, charged forward, their weapons drawn. Ethan's breath caught in his chest, but he didn't hesitate. The earth was with him. He just had to harness it. With a deep breath, he thrust his hands outward, and the ground exploded forward in a forceful wave, knocking the Navori soldiers off balance. The energy crackled in the air, the tension so thick it felt like the very atmosphere was about to snap. This was it. The final push. Ethan summoned the power of the earth, gathering it all around him, molding it into a swirling vortex of raw energy. He could feel the Navori, feel their desperation as they tried to counter him. But it was too late. The earth was on his side now, and with one last surge, he unleashed the energy in a devastating pulse. The ground buckled and split. The cave system collapsed, the Navori's mining operation crumbling under the weight of the planet's wrath. The echoes of their defeat rippled outward, the earth itself sending a final, resounding message to those who thought they could exploit it. And in that moment, as the dust settled and the last of the alien threat faded into the depths, Ethan felt something he hadn't expected: peace. He had saved the world.